My name is Alice Krige, and I am an actress in the film Skin, which is screening at the Dallas AFI Festival.
Well, I'm the director and producer and one of the writers of the film, and I've been involved in it since the year 2000. It's based on a true story which I heard then, so I'm, I suppose, the originator of the project. It's a very unusual story. It's a story of a black girl born to white parents, which in itself was instantly fascinating to me. Let alone that it happened during the apartheid era, which is in South Africa, which is about the worst place that such a thing could have happened, from the point of view of one's entire fate being determined by the color of your skin. And so I was very drawn to the emotional quality of the story and its universality as well, because ultimately it is a story of parents and children, and even if we don't have children, most of us have parents. So it was just an immediate response to the story.
I'm South African by birth, and I lived there until I was 21. And I was born a year before Sandra Lang, so our lives ran on a parallel course. South Africa being what it was, the degree of segregation was so great that the odds of our lives ever intersecting were nil, and of course we didn't. But what moved me immeasurably about the story was that, yes, it tells the story of how fantastically destructive racial segregation is to the community as a whole and to the individuals within it. But also, and I don't want to give the end away, but what really moved me was that two people in this story are able to transcend the damage and the grief and the sorrow, and their love for each other actually enables them to forgive each other for what has happened. And to me, it just shows the power of the human spirit at its most glorious, the power of forgiveness. And that is something that is particularly true of the black community in South Africa. As a white South African, I am always astounded when I go back at the generosity of the black community. And I don't think that's something that people outside of South Africa know or understand. And so that was what really blew me away when I read the script for the first time, because we've heard the stories of the damage and the hurt. This was the first story that showed that two people who had gone through this could actually transcend it and put it behind them, which is about the future. So it's a film not only about the past, but about what we can achieve in the future. I don't live there, but I've been going back frequently because of Skin and several other projects that I have developing there. The country is in a period of transition, which I imagine will last for another couple of generations. Fortunately, it's not going through the credit crunch that America and Europe are experiencing. So economically, it's not experiencing that, although there is massive unemployment and consequent high levels of crime. But I, as a South African, have an enormous amount of hope, and that's based on the ordinary people. Most of the ones that I meet just want it to work.
I mean, it's facing enormous problems which didn't end the day that Nelson Mandela was elected. There are appalling educational. People have to make up for the education that they didn't receive over 40 years, and that takes more than one generation to achieve. Yeah.
I mean, the colonial masters didn't educate the oppressed black population.
And then you have the AIDS problem, where 1 in 5 people are thought to be infected with HIV. That's an incalculable problem in terms of the workforce that's likely to be available to South Africa in the next generation. And housing problems, as Alice was saying, work problems, huge problems, but a great spirit and a great will to try and tackle the problems of corruption, which are really endemic to the whole of the continent. It's interesting you say you've elected the first black president, but he is biracial. He is as white as he is black, and in that sense, his story is very much like Sandra's story, and his journey was very similar to hers in his desire to discover where he belonged. The journey of identity, the politics of identity, are very much the politics of Obama, and very much the politics of Sandra Lang and Skin. And my experience, having made this film, is that issues of racism are far from over, and we still have struggles persuading distributors, even though we've won audience prizes and jury prizes and audiences go nuts for the film. We have trouble persuading distributors that there's a public for the film because it has black cast. And I've actually been told that to my face. I've had 2 distributors say to my face, "Your film is wonderful, it's beautiful, it made us cry, but you've got a problem, you've got black people in it." And this is 2009. So those problems have not gone away, and even with a biracial president, the first African American president, we need to still tackle the issue of people's idea of what it means to be white or black. And I think that's one thing that Skin does very effectively, is to point out how arbitrary and absurd these definitions really are. Well, I was attracted to AFI Dallas because it has quite a large African American population, but also what's exciting about Dallas to me is that it's quite a wealthy city, and it's not jaded, it's not tired. So when we present a film like this here, and people throw up their hands in horror at the idea that it hasn't yet been picked up for distribution, I believe there are people here who can do something about that. So I actually have a very strong positive sense that a lot of good could come out of this screening. And you can find out more about the film at www.skinthemovie.net. Don't forget the net, skinthemovie.net.